All right, let's jump on over to you've been playing both Akira and Oro,
Yep.
and you have some tips to play as or against them because man, one of the worst things is when you jump in, especially if someone's playing in ranked and they beat the crap out of you with a new character, and it's not because they outplayed you, but it's just because you didn't know where things were, where they were vulnerable, where their weaknesses were, where they were unsafe, things along those lines. So we're hoping to offset that just a little bit with some stuff that John has been putting together for you here.
Yep. 5 simple tips for both characters, Oro and Akira. These tips will work if you're playing these characters or against them. So really simple stuff. Oro, number one, is he's slippery. Oro is possibly the most slippery character in the entire game. He's got a double jump, an extremely fast forward dash, and a variety of moves that put him in odd positions that let him kind of slink away if he's in a lot of trouble or to kind of set you up for some madness, right? Rashid is notorious for having extremely good movement options. I don't know if Oro beats him. He might. But if you're comparing a character to Rashid in terms of how difficult they are to pin down, you have a pretty good idea of what Oro is capable of.
Mm.
The next thing is what we talked about before is explosive V triggers. Oro's V trigger sequences in Okazemi situations remind me of what G can do, where your entire life bar is melted away by a single hit or a combo that leads into a high pressure situation. Oro is a classic case of you might be like facing against an Oro play. I'm winning, I lost. Be prepared for that. This character is super technical, and unlocking everything he has going for him is going to take a while. But even right now, some of the sequences he's capable of doing, we haven't seen in quite a while. This guy packs one hell of a punch the moment he gets his V triggers going, so be real careful about that. 3, Oro is hard to play. He's one of the most powerful characters in the Street Fighter universe, and once again, Capcom decided to lock that away behind a very high execution wall. So Oro takes a spot up there with some of the most difficult characters to play in the game, along with like Manat, Rose, Zeku, people of that nature. So keep in mind, if your opponent is working on a really long and difficult sequence, there's a chance they'll drop that setup or conversion and be ready to punish.
Mm.
So it's, it's a good thing. It's like, do you got this or not? Right. So number 4, he has a tool for most situations. This character can do a lot of everything, and the phrase jack of all trades but master of few is definitely applicable. I've outlined that Oro is very slippery and explosive, but after that, you're not going to see a ton of things that are standouts for him. But this is a character who's capable of playing most styles in the game. He has fireballs that can be used for a solid amount of zoning. He also can put up a lot of pressure with moves like standing medium kick is +3 on block and fully cancelable. Like he can cancel into everything with it. So he also got a 3-frame normal and one of the most invincible DPs in the entire game at 16 frames of invincibility. Just to give people an idea, Guile's EX DP, EX Flash Kick, is 9 frames of invincibility. Bison, when he does his EX Stomp and then goes into Devil's Reverse, and there's clips of like people DPing through it, and just kind of flying through it because of how much invincibility it has, that has exactly 16 frames of invincibility, exactly what Oro has with his EXDP. That is a monster of a move, and you're going to see some situations where it's like, oh, I just went for like chip out on super and Oro did EXDP through it and went right around it. He's got some really interesting attacks, but some of his drawbacks are that he only has 950 health, and most of his normals are not plus on block and such. Regardless, there's a lot to work with here, and it's not going to be all readily apparent like from the get-go with Oro. There's just so much there.
Mm.
And then at number 5, he has a lot of juggle opportunities. His ability to extend combos and do some wild stuff are excellent, but the opportunities to do such are not as good, right? You have to really be kind of like specific in your spacing and timing and other stuff to get all the stuff going. Oro's standing media punch, for example, is a great juggle move, and it can even work as an anti-air in the right situations. But getting to those spots on screen and actually being able to get it out, and not have it trade, it's a challenge. But if you can get his juggle stuff going, like you can get, like I posted a clip which we'll show here on the screen and then on my Twitter account too, where he gets 358 damage with a starting standing medium punch and goes into like V trigger and stuff like that. It's pretty damn good. So those are kind of like the main core things to look with Oro.
Right on. I've
All
been
right.
playing some Akira, and
Mhm.
I'm interested to see what your takes are on her.
Yeah, so Akira's 5 things to look out for is number one is she's primarily a footsies and rushdown character. The main goal with Akira is to close ground with her walk speed and using moves like her rush elbow to close ground. All of the normal versions of her rush elbow are -4 on block, but they can be spaced to make them reasonably hard to punish. And then
Hmm.
the EX version of that is -2. That's fully safe to most situations, right? Also, if the opponent gives you much space to work with, it's a great time to charge up her V skill 1 to make her fireball special a little bit better. So yeah. Number two is to have your brother's back. Have your brother Daigo's back
Oh.
is one of the most important things because when Akira's V Trigger 1 comes up, Daigo does some pretty gnarly stuff. And one of the easy ways to take advantage of it is by crossing the opponent up by jumping over them. And these mix-ups have proven to be pretty darn potent in Street Fighter V. And you can see another player did this on me here in the footage, which I had trouble with blocking, where they just basically jumped over me and Daigo's got 50 hitboxes on the screen and I don't know which way to block. And I'm pretty experienced with this stuff, and yeah, and it still got me pretty darn good. So have your brother's back, or more clearly, use your brother's back and those nice hitboxes to really throw the other player for a loop. And if you're on defense and see one of these coming, if the Akira player's doing this, you consider using V Shift. It's not a bad time to bust that out because it gets a little scary.
And this is one of those moves similar to like Bison's EX Stomp that you just don't really contest it. Like there will be moments where you can probably eke it out, but so far in this very early stage, from what I've played, especially last night playing with the guys at the casuals and such, the lesson learned was do not contest when Daigo is doing his stuff because or don't be attacking Akira. You're gonna get clipped by something. And then now that will become we'll understand exactly where the hitboxes and hurt boxes and all that kind of stuff are, and people will figure out how to thread needles there. But like be safe. Be
Yep.
safe out there, guys.
Definitely. Number three, she's stubby. Akira's reach leaves a lot to be desired. While she can get around this with some of her attacks and her stellar walk speed, it's really important to note that Akira can't easily close ground with the normals in this game. You're going to see players closing ground like with Toward plus Heavy Punch, the strike that she does, she kind of palms, and then like her standing heavy kick. And so keep in mind those moves are all negative on block though. The towards palm is -5, and I believe the stand heavy kick is -6. So she's not getting in for free. It's not like she can just hit these buttons and have no recourse to them. Akira wants to be up in her face as much as possible, so make her life difficult in terms of getting there. Don't let her into those ranges for free. It's a really important thing. Make her responsible for her stubbiness. Like make sure that you don't give her free ways in, right?
Mhm.
So number four is that her Dragon Punch is really good. Akira's heavy kick Dragon Punch moves her forward a good distance, and it has really solid levels of invincibility without even using meter. If Akira sees the opponent commit to an option, she can use her DP to blow through it and score a really nice knockdown. As you can see from the footage here, this is happening. You're going to want to use the medium kick DP as her primary anti-air option because it has the most invincibility to air attacks, and the heavy option, the heavy kick version, tends to move her so far forward you can actually miss the opponent, and that could be really bad. So keep in mind every single one of her DPs is fully crush counterable punishable, and you're going to see Akira players betting some stuff pretty heavily on a DP that they probably shouldn't, because Akira is going to get frustrated with trying to get in and it's like, well, I'm just going to DP here and do some other stuff. It's really good, but this girl's got a 950 health rating, and if she's going to be DPing a bunch, you want to make sure your crush counter punishes are ready to go against this character. Very important thing.
And this is one of the ways she can actually get in, at least against fireball characters and against characters that just have, like, if you whiff something, heavy DP is not a bad whiff punish, especially if she's too far to use, other options. But she can go straight through a fireball if she sees it. And it's like, it feels like it's from half screen. It's not quite that far, but like sweep distance, maybe even a little bit farther back. That DP takes her horizontally so far forward that she'll get you. Some of like if you have a fireball that goes kind of up like Lucia's or Gil's high fireball, for instance, she might get clipped by that and then you guys will trade. But a lot of times she'll just breeze right through a DP if she's looking for it. And then, hey, she's not technically in at that point, but it is something to counter projectile and zoning strategies for her. So Akira players are going to know how to do that kind of stuff because it's going to be very crucial to her game.
Yeah, and hurt boxes on fireballs in this game are pretty large. I don't know why Capcom did that exactly, but pretty universally, like if you have a fireball thrower, your hurt box is pretty far out there.
They
and
reach,
Akira
Yeah.
yeah, She's going to clip you with it, so you got to be really careful. I think we're going to be all more acutely aware of it now with this character. But last thing, number 5 is beware of the spin kicks. These suckers are tricky. The best case scenario for these things on the initial attack, not the follow-up, but the initial attack, is just the first hit being -5 or -6. Now, the follow-ups are -10 or -12, except if she does the heavy kick version, which goes very high and has very little range. That one's -2, but it also can be ducked under even from point-blank range. So it's going to whiff entirely if she does that option, but it is -2 if you happen to be standing and blocking it. So this is tricky. It's hard to explain. There's so much going on here. John, it sounds like you want to jump in.
Yeah, and I guess if it's tricky, and to clarify, it's when she does, so she does a spin kick, and then she can choose to do another one, and she can go low, mid, or high with these. But I wanted to ask specifically because is the gap between, if she chooses to do 2 spin kicks, is that 5 or 6 frames, or is it only that if she does 1 spin kick, she's -5, and then if she does the next one and you block that, she's -10 or 12?
So it's all move, startup, and other things like that. But basically, when you're talking about a 6-frame punish window, like in seeing if she does another follow-up or not, like it depends on what button you hit or whatever. So she can trap you. She can frame trap you. So it's like, so she did the first initial attack and it's -6. I'm going to go ahead and try to punish that. Well, if I'm a little bit late on the punish or I choose the wrong button or something like that, her follow-up will come and clip me, depending on especially the range and other stuff like that. Her follow-ups, it's tricky. You can, if you know the frame data exactly and you know everything, like you can get some consistent punishes out there, but depending on the spacing and the timing of the Akira player, she can also blow up your punish attempt. And so it's very much a guessing game at that point. And, the Akira player needs to have very good spacing and timing to make this stuff like a true trap. But I had a player last night who was very good, go up against my Rose, and they were doing some of the traps. And I'm like, oh, I know this is -5 or -6. Let me stick something out there. Boom, hit me with it, went right into super and killed me. And I'm like, bam. I'm like, that's not bad. It's tricky. So you want to be really careful with this. It's not a core strategy that you want to go to all the time. You want to make sure that your risk versus, I want to call it as a gimmick as much as like it needs to favor your risk versus reward really well. Because if you can get that and go into super and do 500 damage or whatever and take the round, it's worth it. Like that's not a gimmick at that point. That's a trap that the opponent might fall for and you might kill. But this stuff is really, really, really tricky, and I highly recommend that if you play against Akira a lot, you kind of lab this a lot. You're going to need to spend like an extra 20 minutes on this sucker, and if you play Akira, realize that like for the opponent, I don't care what the frame data is a liar sometimes. It's really tricky to consistently go up against this if you don't have a lot of experience with it. If you have a lot of experience, it's probably not too bad. But that's it. Those are my 5 simple tips there for Oro and Akira.
Right on.